And we are back on I-24 News. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for sticking with us. Well, the Middle East is on edge as day 5 of the U.S.-Israel campaign against Iran unfolds. Overnight and into Wednesday, the Israeli Air Force carried out extensive strikes across Iran, hitting command centers, missile launchers, air defense systems, and military sites in Tehran, Isfahan, and Shiraz. Officials say that more than 300 Iranian missile launchers have been targeted in a round-the-clock hunt aimed at slowing down the salvos that have been raining down in Israel and the Gulf. In a first-ever move, an Israeli F-35 also shot down an Iranian manned jet over Tehran. That's the IAF's first air-to-air kill in 40 years. This while drones continue to be intercepted in the hundreds. Now, at the same time, U.S. forces say that they've hit nearly 2,000 targets in Iran. They've destroyed 17 Iranian ships, including a submarine. And they also claim Iran has already launched over 500 ballistic missiles and 2,000 drones in retaliation at Israel, 8 different Gulf countries, and Cyprus, and most recently, Turkey. More than 1,000 people have been killed in Iran, according to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency. But because of an ongoing internet blackout there, those numbers are very difficult to verify at this point. The U.S. Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, has just spoken at the Pentagon. Have a listen to what he had to say.
America is winning decisively, devastatingly, and without mercy. They are toast, and they know it. Or at least soon enough, they will know it. And we have only just begun to hunt, dismantle, demoralize, destroy, and defeat their capabilities.
Well, joining us now is our senior U.S. correspondent, Mike Wagenheim from the White House. So, first of all, I'd like you to just break down the highlights of Hegseth's remarks. What stood out? What should our viewers be paying the most attention to?
Well, it was quite an optimistic outlook there from Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, who took the podium together. Hegseth more on the messaging side, Dan Kane more of a straight-up military man, just the facts, but together trying to paint a picture of the latest situation there. Hegseth saying that within a few days, America will have complete air superiority over the skies of Tehran, meaning no ability really to knock their planes down out of the sky. Meanwhile, when it comes to naval territory, Hegseth, or rather Kane, saying that the U.S. military has, quote, effectively neutralized Iran's major naval presence in theater. Now, that includes the shipping of a frigate off the coast of Sri Lanka earlier today using a torpedo, something an American submarine has not done to bring down an enemy ship since World War II. And while ballistic missiles continue to be fired into Israel, including just a couple of hours ago, Hegseth said the rate at which they're being fired is significantly dropping by the day. The numbers he gave, 86% down from the first day, 23% down in the last 24 hours. And those one-way drones, which are still very problematic, they are down 73% from the opening days, though Hegseth conceded to Congress yesterday that they still present quite a problem for American armed forces. Meanwhile, Hegseth coming a bit under fire in terms of the plan heading into the war in protecting service members. 6 of them already died, evacuation procedures, things of that nature. Hegseth said that the U.S. military moved more than 90% of Americans on bases in the region out of the range of Iranian fire before launching the campaign, though questions still remain over those protective actions.
Right. The Senate is set to vote on whether President Trump can continue military action without Congress, all while the White House itself is giving these kind of conflicting explanations for why this war began in the first place. You even spoke about the success, what the meaning of success would be in this war for the United States, not only Israel. So what does this actually mean?
Well, the Senate's going to vote, and the House is likely to vote at some point as well. They'll find a way on the Democratic side to force a vote here. I think neither one is going to pass, but it's a measure. Those types of resolutions that aren't going to pass are still a measure of where everybody stands on a particular issue and how much support does Trump have, not from Democrats on this, but from Republicans, I think will be the most telling. Is he losing Republican support for having not come to Congress with more urgency, with more information, with a greater telling of the goals, of the outline, of the reasoning? It's not just Democrats that are upset about how this has been handled. There's many Republicans, publicly, some privately, that have voiced their concerns and sometimes outrage as well. So I think that's going to be the key, not whether it passes or fails. Neither one's going to, but how Republicans in the end line up on these particular votes.
All right. That is our senior U.S. correspondent, Mike Wagenheim, joining us from the White House. Thank you for that update. We're going to turn now to our correspondents in studio. We have our senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Osran, with us, and our senior diplomatic correspondent, Owen Alterman. So I'd like to turn to you, Ariel, first, because there are new reports coming out about Israeli targets, specifically the Iranian military headquarters within Iran just recently. We've been seeing these major waves of strikes by both Israel and the United States. What are the most recent targets?
Yeah, so with Israel and both the U.S. going after a wide range of military targets, from command and control centers to ballistic missile depots, as well as launchers and the missiles themselves. The IDF sharing a short while ago that they are also concentrating on Iran's internal security apparatus. Now, these are the bodies that are responsible for the unprecedented oppression of the Iranian people, for killing, according to estimates, tens of thousands of Iranian protesters a couple months back. And this is where, one can begin to draw a line between the nuclear talks, going after the ballistic missile threats, and trying to help promote regime change and really bring upon a change inside Iran. And so these targets include going after IRGC headquarters, Intelligence Directorate headquarters, Basij headquarters. This is the paramilitary body operating under the IRGC that is really responsible for sending the officers to the streets and shooting at the protesters. Also, Quds Force headquarters, Internal Security Forces headquarters, Cyber Warfare headquarters, responsible for limiting the information that comes out of Iran, also what comes in, because in the eyes of the regime, that is equally important, as well as the headquarters of the unit and the internal security apparatus responsible for suppressing protests. And so this is key because, what prompted Trump's involvement in the first place were the protests. But it is hard to see how going after Iran's military capabilities leads to supporting the protesters and bring upon regime change. So it's these kinds of targets that help kind of connect those two dots and set the ground for what both Israel and the United States, even if both aren't saying it publicly today, of weakening the suppression apparatus of the regime to bring upon the conditions for perhaps the Iranian people to take the baton and bring down the regime once these strikes come to an end.
Okay, I'm going to quickly turn to northern Israel. Right now, there are sirens taking place right now, apparently amidst a strike from the Hezbollah terror group out of Lebanon. Important to note, this is an Iranian proxy group. About 2 days ago, they began striking northern Israel with drones and rockets in a show of solidarity with the Islamic regime, saying that this was revenge for the killing of the Iranian supreme leader. And since then, we've been seeing an offensive by, of course, Israel in southern Lebanon and Beirut, with the goal of taking out Hezbollah infrastructure. We've been seeing a lot more rocket sirens emanating from Lebanon as a result of this ongoing conflict. But we're going to turn now to what happened in central Israel today. At least 2 people have been injured in central Israel following simultaneous rocket and missile fire from Hezbollah out of Lebanon. And from the Islamic Republic of Iran earlier this afternoon, the injuries were sustained by shrapnel after fragments of the projectiles impacted several locations. According to the United States, Iran's missile launches are down by 86% from the first day of the conflict. But here in Israel, we can say that difference can be felt. There was an 8-hour lull before rocket sirens started sounding again at around 2 p.m. in Israel across the country. But since that point, they've been pretty frequent. And joining us now is our correspondent, Joe Brown. Joe, you know, it's been a bit of a strange day. Initially, there weren't many sirens, and all of a sudden, everything kind of ramped up. How many strikes have we actually seen over the course of the last 24 hours? How does this compare to previous days? And tell us what we know about the victims in central Israel.
So I should note something from our last broadcast. There was a little bit of irony from the Iranians as I was talking about how the number of missiles has very drastically decreased over the last couple of days, only to be interrupted by a missile alert itself. I would like to think maybe the Iranians are watching I-24 news in their bunkers and they have an ironic sense of humor, but probably not the case. But as you say, there's been a huge decrease in the number of rockets that have been fired towards Israel. From the first day, there was 350, and over the last 24 hours, there was only 50. This suggests that the Iranians are both running out of missiles and the fact that the IDF and the US Air Force are striking them with such velocity that they are unable to deal with the constant demand of missile firings towards Israel. And here I am right now at the scene of one of the deadly attacks. There have only been 2 deadly strikes in Israel in this iteration of the war. One was here on the first night, February the 28th, in which one woman, a foreign care worker, Marianne Velazquez de Vera, was killed. She did not go to her shelter because she was with an elderly Israeli who was rescued from the rubble. The house that she was in is just over to my right. You can see the sort of beige building behind me. Next to that, there is a gap. If we can pan over and have a look over here, there is a gap in between. That was where the building was. It was deemed to be unsafe by the city, and thus it was bulldozed within around about 24 hours. And I was here the day that it happened. I was with somebody, a woman called Ronnie, who said that she was there and she was away from the house at the time, but whilst we were talking, she was seeing her house getting demolished. She noted that there was a mirror belonging to her late grandmother that was being taken out by an excavator. And we've seen some of the work behind me today with the aid workers coming in and taking some belongings of the residents who have been evacuated. In total, in this area, there were 40 buildings that were evacuated. Around about 200 people have been sent to hotels, and they are looking for other residencies. And say this is the one deadly strike in central Israel. There was another strike in Beit Shemesh a day later, which claimed the lives of 9 Israelis, including some who were in a shelter at the time because of a direct hit. But as the missile launches towards Israel have been decreasing, you can feel that among the people here. There's been a sense of relief. I went out into the streets on the first day. It was a ghost town. It's still on a very low capacity here in Tel Aviv, but there's a lot more people who are feeling that they are able to come out, that they aren't as fearful over the Iranian ballistic missiles, which is a testament to how Israel's aerial defense systems have been dealing with this. Only around about 3% have made it through the Iron Dome or the Iron Beam or David Sling, and this shows that the Israeli Air Force is doing its job, it's working, and the people are feeling the benefits of it. But still, with the IDF Home Front Command saying that you cannot meet outside of bomb shelters, people have still been avoiding many public spaces. It's a lot quieter than it would have been on any other day.
All right, Joe Brown, our correspondent, joining us from Tel Aviv. Now, for the first time in this war, a missile headed toward Turkish airspace, and NATO has stepped in. Turkey's defense ministry says a ballistic munition launched from Iran, which crossed Iraqi and Syrian airspace, was detected heading toward Turkey before being intercepted by NATO air and missile defense systems in the eastern Mediterranean. Debris actually fell in Hatay province, but officials say it was from the interceptor and not the Iranian missile itself, and that there weren't any casualties. Well, Ankara is now warning that it reserves the right to respond to any hostile action and is urging all sides not to widen the conflict. Apparently, they've called in the Iranian ambassador within Turkey, but the interception certainly raises the stakes for NATO, which is condemning the strike, but still hasn't committed to joining the U.S. and Israel in the fight against Iran. And joining us now is our security analyst, Yakov Lapin. Yakov, how significant is it that NATO assets actually intercepted a missile heading toward Turkish airspace? Do you think that this effectively is going to pull the alliance one step closer to direct involvement? Because obviously what we were hearing from NATO yesterday and also just, several different European nations in regards to the strikes that we also saw in Cyprus was perhaps a lack of interest in actually getting involved.
I don't think it's going to bring NATO one step closer because what is NATO? NATO is composed of the individual member states. And at the end of the day, I don't see any desire among the non-American member states of NATO, the governments. They will be making the decision to get involved in this war, which is a huge mistake on their part because Iran is obviously a threat to the entire world. But they seem very content on not getting involved in the war. By the way, according to reports, that missile was apparently heading for a base in Cyprus. That was its intended location, intended target, according to reports.
Well, but is that being perceived as a mistake by Turkey?
No, it's not. It's not a mistake by Turkey because the missile, threatened Turkish airspace. Mm-hmm. So right. Turkey, did what it had to do to protect its airspace. I think, the real significance here that this is probably the second time, if not more, during this war, that Cyprus, a European Union member state, is being targeted by Iran and previously by Hezbollah. By the Iranian terror axis. This is an EU member that's being targeted.
And these are British bases that are not actually involved in U.S.-Israeli strikes.
Exactly right. And that's very, very significant. And this is exactly what Israel has been warning about, that Iran is a global menace and that it has no red lines and that it's fanatical and jihadist ideology. It has its sights set on the entire world, and really, this goes way beyond Israel. Here's the proof: it's attacking an EU member, and it looks like this missile that Turkey intercepted may have been designed to go to Cyprus rather than Turkey. Natasha, I also just want to draw your attention and that of the viewers. You mentioned this at the beginning of the broadcast, but I think it's worth pausing on the Iranian military compound that was struck today by the Israeli Air Force. This is remarkable. This is not a normal target. Let me just share with you who was based at this compound. Within this compound, it contained the headquarters of the IRGC, the Iranian Intelligence Directorate, the Basij, the Quds Force, the Internal Security Forces, cyber warfare headquarters, and the headquarters of the unit in internal security responsible for internal suppression. This is a vastly important nerve center in eastern Tehran. And what I've learned from an IDF official is that over 100 Israeli Air Force jets took part in striking the compound. They delivered over 250 munitions. So what I'm suggesting here is that this strike is not just another strike. This is yet another turning point in the war. This is a massively important strike, and it could significantly further weaken the Iranian terror regime.
All right. Well, Yaakov, we're also seeing reports coming out that Israel strikes in Iran have killed thousands of Iranian soldiers amid the ongoing conflict. Obviously, we're seeing numbers by human rights activist groups within Iran citing that number at around 1,000. Of course, these are numbers that can't be verified. They also don't distinguish between IRGC members and civilians. But thousands is certainly more than the latest numbers that we've been seeing, which are at around 1,000. So interesting to know. But we're going to turn to our next story. We'll be coming back to you shortly. What if the next front in this war isn't more airstrikes, but an uprising from inside Iran? Well, the U.S. has allegedly been in talks with Iranian Kurdish militias about a potential operation in western Iran. The idea is that Kurdish fighters would take on Iran security forces near the border, potentially creating space for ordinary Iranians to rise up against the regime after the killing of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and other senior officials in the opening days of this war. Now, sources say that no final decision has been made, but Kurdish groups have reportedly asked for CIA support, including weapons. The White House and the Pentagon have not commented on this so far. And joining us now is Diliman Abdulkader. He's a founder of American Friends of Kurdistan. He's located in D.C. So, first of all, I think the big question is how realistic is this idea that Kurdish fighters could weaken Iran's security forces enough to spark a broader civilian uprising within the country?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. Listen, the Kurds just proves that we can rely on the Kurds on the ground. They're proven fighters. They're reliable partners, and they have they're the most armed and organized minority group inside Iran. The Kurds have been fighting and engaging the IRGC and the Islamic regime for decades, since day one. So it only makes sense to come back and rely on the Kurds on the Israeli and the United States part. Now, as far as the Kurds weakening Tehran, I think it's an opportunity for all the people inside Iran that that will follow the Kurds' example, that they are picking up their weapons, they're rising against the regime, and so can you and pick up your weapons as well. I think it starts in northwest Iran, in East Kurdistan, as the Kurds call it, Rojhelat. I think this is an opportunity for all the people of Iran to rise and take down the regime.
What risks would this pose, not just for Iran, but for Iraqi Kurdistan and neighboring countries like Turkey? Obviously, we're seeing fears that other, separatist minorities within Iran could somehow get involved as well, and that might, spark a much larger issue with Pakistan and Turkey, for one.
There's always risk. I mean, the Kurds are in a pivotal strategic location in the heart of the Middle East. The Kurds in Iraq and the Kurdistan region have an autonomous region, and they're staying neutral. But they do share a border with Iran, and especially with East Kurdistan, and where the Kurds that are supposedly being armed by the United States. So I think there is a risk to their security, to their airspace, especially by Turkey, but also, of course, by Iran. The Kurds in Iraq have announced that they're still neutral. Just strategically, you have to be, but that does not limit the Kurds in Iran to take up arms and rise against the regime. I think this is an opportunity they see, and the United States is creating the conditions. United States, alongside Israel, is creating the conditions from the air to take down strategic IRGC assets and military bases on the ground, so the Kurds can have an upper hand, if not with advanced weapons on the ground.
I mean, ultimately, if the U.S. does back this kind of operation, does that fundamentally change Washington's role in this war? Obviously, they've kind of been wish-washy as to what the ultimate goal is, whether that is obviously just destroying Iranian nuclear capabilities or actively trying to engineer regime change. Do the Kurds feel that they have enough, you could say, fighting abilities and history to be able to take this on?
That's a legitimate question. Look, there's two scenarios in Iran, two possible scenarios. A Venezuela-type scenario, where we take out the head of the snake, the Ayatollah, and the top commanders and the top rulers of the country, and a more pragmatic leadership, more approachable leadership that the United States can approach and speak with, are now leading the country. That still allows the Kurds to take over their historic territorial lands and maybe embolden the rest of the people to kind of weaken the regime even more. The second scenario is the regime falls entirely. The United States has created a buffer zone in northwest Iran alongside the Kurds. But the Kurds, of course, you have to be realistic. The Kurds have demands as well. They require guarantees, because we just witnessed what the Kurds went through in Syria, and they do not want to be betrayed by the West again.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us, Diliman. We're going to turn back to our correspondents in the studio. This is just out right now. A message from Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. he is basically saying that to surrounding neighboring countries, we respect your sovereignty. We believe that the security and stability of the region must be achieved through the collective efforts of its states. Essentially, what he's saying right now is that the reason that Iran has been attacking Gulf nations is not because Iran has an issue with the sovereignty of those states, but I guess a U.S. presence there, U.S. military presence. I'd like to turn to Owen Alterman, our diplomatic correspondent, to hear what he has to say to this, because Iran has been firing almost as many drones and projectiles, from what I understand, the UAE as it has Israel.
Far more. At the UAE, Natasha, almost as much as all of the other countries combined, believe it or not. Let's just say there's a little bit of a lack of trust across the Persian Gulf, Arabian Gulf, and I don't know that one post on X is going to compensate for everything that's happened. That said, look, there's going to be a natural hesitation on the Arabian side of that Gulf to act, and we've already seen that for a host of reasons. These countries are not anxious and not chomping at the bit to start fighting Iran and to start not initiating, but responding actively to a war in Iran. So there might be something the Iranians work with in the long term, but it's a long road. All
right, we're going to go out for a quick commercial break, but we'll be back shortly with continued coverage. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you soon.
(919-8734). Are high interest rates keeping you from selling your home? We have a way to get you more money for your home while saving thousands in commissions. At Ideal Agent, we'll connect you with a top local agent who will sell your home fast, for top dollar, and all this for as low as a 2% commission.
We paid a 2% commission, which I don't think we would have had with any other agent, and we got top dollar for our house, and we are just so happy about it, and the results were fantastic.
Ideal Agent connected me with the top 1% agent in my market, and I actually got it at a discount, and I saved about $12,500, which is unheard of when you're working with the top producer in any industry.
We've helped tens of thousands of home sellers get 5-star results with top-performing experts you can trust. We guarantee it. Ideal Agent is available nationwide, there's no obligation, and best of all, our service is completely free. Call today or visit idealagent.com.
Do you suffer in pain? Are you stiff, tense, or less active than before? Introducing the EasyWell Remedy Massage System that combines the incredible effects of vibrational therapy, targeted deep tissue shiatsu massage, plus soothing infrared heat. A triple fusion of therapeutic experiences. Full body vibrational therapy increases blood circulation and reduces inflammation. Look at these beads moving from the powerful vibrational motors.
It's like 1,000 little fingers just vibrating my body from head to toe.
Infrared heat penetrates deep to reduce pain, soothe, and relax.
Remedy gets in there and helps deal with the source of the pain, so you feel much better.
The Ultra Shiatsu pillow with 6 infrared heated nodes mimics a professional massage. Plus, it's detachable for deep relief anywhere you need it.
It's just something that you're gonna have to feel for yourself.
Experience the true remedy for your pain and stiffness. Call now.
wherever you are. Access our programmes, reports, in-depth discussions and expert analysis anytime, anywhere, right from your phone. All the content from the I24 News website, the latest articles, exclusive interviews, VOD and live broadcasts is now just a tap away on the I24 News app. So what are you waiting for? Download the I24 News app today.
And we are back on I24 News. I'm Natasha Kirchek, and thanks for sticking with us. Well, we just have some new updates for you coming in. Iran has reportedly damaged at least 7 U.S. military communication sites across the Middle East following continued strikes on Gulf Arab nations, sites that are in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. This also comes as U.S. forces say that they have struck or sunk more than 20 Iranian ships. That is according to the U.S. Central Command. Now, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has just visited the IDF's intelligence division today to praise soldiers and commanders for their work. And here's what he had to say.
Our advantage over Iran in this campaign lies mainly in 2 dimensions: intelligence and operational capability. If you ask what surprised the Iranians to the extent that they were unprepared despite strategic warning, it is that they could not assess or properly evaluate these 2 dimensions: the breadth and depth of intelligence all the way to the final target, and the operational capability to exploit that intelligence in order to strike, attack, destroy, and dismantle their capabilities. When we spoke after the very successful Operation Rising Lion, I also said, and it was clear, you don't fight the last war, you prepare for the next war. Many intelligence and other capabilities were exhausted, burned, and already used, so the challenge was to rebuild the intelligence capability, and not just rebuild it, but expand it tenfold. That is essentially what happened here, across the whole of Iran. In addition, since an operation had originally been planned for the middle of the year with the same objective that had been set, but due to developments and circumstances, mainly what happened inside Iran and the position of the President of the United States, as well as the possibility of creating a combined operation, there was a need to bring everything forward to February. This was something we ourselves hoped for, but were not certain about. And you delivered tremendous progress in the intelligence dimension, day by day and hour by hour, more capabilities, more dimensions, and of course, the operational preparations. You have a huge role in building this capability, which led both to this combined effort and to the result of the fantastic opening strike and to what followed. I truly express great appreciation and call on you to continue in the same way, because we are in the midst of a campaign. We are convinced it will end in the best way, and the results will be a very significant strengthening of the security of the State of Israel, its standing, the removal of threats, and all the challenges we have faced for a long time. So thank you very much, and we can still say Happy Purim to everyone.
2 Israeli soldiers have been moderately wounded in southern Lebanon after a Hezbollah anti-tank missile attack, according to the IDF. The Israeli military has advanced deeper into the country over the course of the last 2 days after Hezbollah began shooting rockets and drones into Israeli territory overnight on Monday, and is now telling all civilians in southern Lebanon to evacuate north of the Litani River immediately as fighting with Hezbollah intensifies. Now, the IDF says it does not intend to harm civilians, but is warning that anyone near Hezbollah fighters, weapons, or facilities is putting their life at risk. This comes after more than 250 Israeli strikes across Lebanon since Hezbollah officially entered the war on Monday, including rocket launchers that fired toward Tel Aviv and Haifa, command centers in Nabatea, and sites in Beirut's southern suburbs, which is, of course, a Hezbollah stronghold. The last time that Israel issued a blanket evacuation order like this was during the October 2024 ground offensive, and an estimated 300,000 Lebanese civilians have already fled the area. Joining us now from northern Israel is our correspondent Balir Sladin. Balir, give us the latest in terms of what is happening there. We saw that there were sirens going off not too long ago. How much fire is northern Israel seeing from Hezbollah at this point?
Yes, we're seeing that Hezbollah is targeting mainly the northern communities, those same communities that have been evacuated in the first war with Hezbollah, last year's war, but now they are not evacuated, and this is the main focus. But Hezbollah is also firing rockets toward Haifa, Krayot, and the Western Galilee big cities in there. And of course, several times today, they have tried to target, as they are saying, military bases in central Israel. We've seen some sort of a coordination between Hezbollah and Iran. For example, this afternoon, Hezbollah have fired six missiles toward the center with 5 toward Haifa. That's simultaneously while Iran was firing missiles as well in the north, or to the northern areas, and also to central Israel, meaning that there is some sort of a coordination. That's, by the way, what some officials in the IDF are also saying. Now, because of this targeting of the northern communities that are right on the border, the Israeli authorities are actually banning right now all agricultural activities in the area. And if we have seen some people working yesterday even in that area, and now all is banned and people can't continue working normally in those communities. And we're talking, of course, about significant economical harm for those communities because they rely on agriculture after all. Now, regarding what's happening inside Lebanon, of course, the expansion of the ground operation has been going since yesterday. And the confrontation today between Hezbollah operatives and the IDF did cause two not casualties, rather two soldiers that were moderately wounded. And Hezbollah is saying in a statement that they have targeted a military truck. But another player is also in South Lebanon. Just a short while ago, the Lebanese armed forces are saying that they have arrested 26 people, including Lebanese and Palestinians, that they were carrying or having unauthorized weapons, that they are saying illegal weapons. So the Lebanese army is trying right now, a little bit too late, of course, to contain Hezbollah's activity. But as we see it, even a year and a half after the ceasefire and the Lebanese army claiming that they have cleared all of the south of the Litani River, Hezbollah is still there, or at least is managing to arrive to that area and even confront the IDF soldiers with several incidents so far since yesterday.
All right, Balir, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. We are getting some reports right now that Hezbollah's current leader is going to be speaking to the public shortly. I'd like to turn to Ariel Osran, our Middle East correspondent, here with more on that. What do we know? Yeah,
I don't know if you intended to call him the current leader, but it is very possible that there's a big target on the head of Naim Qassem right now, as there is over the leaders of all Iran's proxies right now. Naim Qassem, for the first time since Hezbollah decided to enter the war, is going to deliver a speech in roughly 2.5 hours. It is not going to be a firebrand speech as we were accustomed to from his predecessor, Nasrallah, but he is expected to explain why Hezbollah joined the war, trying to also respond to internal criticism against Hezbollah for dragging Lebanon once again into the war. Now, that is the step is contrary to what Lebanon's leadership has promised. Nawaf Salam, the Lebanese prime minister, has constantly said that they will not allow anyone to drag Lebanon into another war. And Nawaf Salam is, in fact, speaking right now, saying that these are very challenging days for Lebanon, and saying that tens of thousands of residents of southern Lebanon have fled their homes northward. This happens as Israel is currently carrying out strikes across southern Lebanon as well as the Bekaa Valley. Now, one of these strikes in Lebanon just the other day was against Hezbollah's El Manar TV headquarters in Beirut's southern suburb. And due to the damage, they are now forced to report or to broadcast from the backyard of the station. I think we can take a look on screen right now, seeing how they have basically taken their broadcast outside, under the fresh air of bombarded Beirut. And so this is how Hezbollah's propaganda branch is now reporting. And so this just shows, just as the IDF took out the broadcast headquarters of the Islamic regime in Tehran, it is doing that also against Hezbollah in Beirut, and the targets are just ongoing.
All right. Well, another little update that we have coming out right now, Western officials speaking on the condition of anonymity, to discuss intelligence matters, say that Iran is running out of ballistic missiles within days, that Iran has several days' worth of ballistic missiles if it continues firing at this rate. Owen, quick comment before I turn to our next story.
Right. Well, there's that. There's a parallel article in the Washington Post, and Natasha, talking about how in the Pentagon, they're worried about the supplies of some American weapons. Right. So this just sharpens that this is, in a sense, a race between the two sides. Can the United States and Israel destroy Iran's ballistic missiles and launchers faster than Iran can force the U.S., Israel, and the Gulf states to deplete their supplies of interceptors?
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely an issue that countries targeted by Iran are going through their own defensive missile stockpiles. And so they're going to be...
By the way, the Pentagon on record is denying this.
Right. But still, either way, there's certainly going to have to be a careful management as to the own stocks of defensive missiles that these countries have. But we're actually going to turn to what is happening inside Iran internally. We'll be back with you shortly, Owen. As the dust settles after the strike that killed Iran's supreme leader, the question now is simple, and that is, who is going to take over? Well, new reporting says that the front runner is his own son, Mojtaba Khamenei, a move that would keep power firmly inside the family of the late Ali Khamenei. Senior clerics are reportedly weighing that decision, but some are nervous, fearing that naming Mojtaba could make him an even bigger target for the U.S. and Israel. And Israel is making that threat explicit. Defense Minister Israel Katz says that any leader appointed by the Iranian regime will be an unequivocal target for elimination. He says it does not matter what his name is or where he hides. At the same time, U.S. President Donald Trump spoke with reporters, essentially dismissing exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi as a successor on Tuesday. He said that someone from within Iran would make more sense, while claiming that most potential leaders that Washington once had in mind are already dead. So the question, of course, now is this a dynastic succession or the start of a dangerous power vacuum, and who's going to slip in? And joining us from Brussels is author and human rights activist Daria Safai. She's a member of the Belgian Chamber of Representatives. How significant would it be if Mojtaba Khamenei is chosen? Would that signal the continuity of the regime, or is it really irrelevant given the deepening fractures that we're seeing already in the clerical establishment in this onslaught from the U.S. and Israel?
Actually, Mojtaba Khamenei is one of the radical clerics, and because he is the son of Khamenei, so his name was always named for the next leader. But I should say, I know that because he is a radical, he will never even have the chance by America and Israel to talk about it. I mean, Israel and America didn't do this campaign to have someone again like him at the power. And so let's say this is absolutely not what Iranian people had wished for. Iranian people want to pass this regime to the next regime, and the next regime cannot be found in a sort of moderate inside Iran, this or that, will be a secular democracy which the people can vote to the person that they are going to choose. So we cannot find anything in this regime. Right. And I am sure that President Trump and Israel are decided also to eliminate this one as well.
Yeah, so I'd like to speak about that. President Trump spoke to reporters yesterday. He says that someone from within Iran should emerge as the next leader of Iran. He's essentially dismissing Reza Pahlavi, who, we've seen much of the Iranian diaspora, much of anti-regime protesters speak about being the potential successor, the next replacement, should this regime fall. So realistically, is there any other viable opposition figure? And how do Iranians take that commentary from Trump?
There is no other choice than Reza Pahlavi for going from this regime to the other regime, and also in the future of Iran. And it's not my opinion. I am only one of the 90 million Iranians. But the Iranian, they want themselves. They have given their lives. And it's not about 10 or 100 people. No. They were millions on the streets of Iran with the risk of their life that they asked for return of Pahlavi, even Pahlavi dynasty. That's important to know, that the Iranian, they are not crazy or dumb people. They know what they are doing, and they know what the future will bring if Prince Reza Pahlavi will take this leadership to a secular democracy. That's what the people of Iran, they want. Right. And until it's not arrived, they are going to fight inside and outside Iran to bring Pahlavi back to their country.
Which is why those comments from Trump are pretty interesting, that he's essentially dismissing Pahlavi, because obviously we're seeing a lot of the Iranian diaspora and protesters very happy about the decision for there to be military intervention by the United States and Israel because of the hope for regime change. And then the idea that America would essentially dictate who that next leader is. I mean, what message is that sending to the Iranian public? And also, I just want you to kind of break down the breakup right now between who is supporting the Islamic Republic and who is not.
I think President Trump didn't really mean to take any option on one or other future leader. I think what he has always said about the people of Iran should decide we will be the next, they should take back their country. I think President Trump knew and knows that the Iranian regime is imminent danger for the security and national security of America, Israel, and Western countries. So what he decided to do is eliminating this regime. And like he has always told, that it's not on him to endorse someone, and it's not on him to say that someone is not good enough. It's the people of Iran who are going to choose the next step. And that's what's beautiful about America. America has chosen to help Iranian people. That's why the people of Iran, they thank President Trump. They love what America is doing right now. Even though their home, their house is bombarded, they take a video and they say, President Trump, this is my house, but I don't care. Thank you so much coming and helping us. So the next step, we will come, it's on the Iranian people, on us to choose. And I say you something very obvious. The choice of people of Iran for having Prince Reza Pahlavi is really obvious. And it's not something like 20% or even 50%. 70%, 80% of the people of Iran are calling his name inside and outside Iran to take the power and save them. And it will happen. And until this day, we don't sit down.
All right. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us, Daria. We're going to turn to Gaza right now. One of President Donald Trump's signature diplomatic projects is now on pause because of this war with Iran. Indonesia now says that all discussions tied to Trump's so-called Board of Peace are officially on hold as global attention is shifting to the escalating Israel-U.S. conflict with Tehran. The initiative, which was launched earlier this year after last year's Gaza ceasefire, was meant to lay groundwork for long-term stabilization, including a possible international force in Gaza. And Indonesia was one of the few countries that even signaled it might send troops. Now, Jakarta says the focus is elsewhere, especially as Gulf countries come under Iranian attack. And joining us from Ramallah is Palestinian security analyst Mohammed Najib with more on this. How significant is it that Indonesia, which is the world's largest Muslim-majority country, says all Board of Peace discussions are on hold?
Yeah, actually, the Iranian-Israeli war affected all sides of Palestinian life, either in Gaza, even with the word of peace and moving to the second phase of negotiation in the Gaza agreement, and as well as in the West Bank here. So yeah, it was a tough times for the people of Gaza as well as in the West Bank here. Also, 3 million Palestinians in the West Bank living without shelters, and the Israelis reactivated the checkpoints, separated the West Bank from Israel, and the stop of all aspects of life during the month of Ramadan. No one can go to pray at Al-Aqsa. So they were shortage of fuel and food at the first day of the eruption of the war. So, yeah, of course, this military confrontation between Israel and Iran affected all sides of the Palestinian life. And if it is lasted for a long time, the effects will be more negative on the Palestinian life, even in Gaza or in the West Bank.
You know, obviously, with the Iran war escalating, is the idea effectively dead, in your opinion, for sending troops to a stabilization force in Gaza?
They were hesitant to send forces in Gaza, but also they said they will finance training of Palestinian police that were affiliated with the Palestinian Authority to be deployed at Rafah crossing and in the Gaza Strip. But Israel didn't allow that right now, and the Americans were pushing here and there and trying to find an alternative. But what is learned that Indonesia and Morocco also said it is ready to deploy military forces in Gaza there as peacekeeping forces, not disarm Hamas. But the discussions wasn't final, and even the Gaza Administrative Committee wasn't allowed to go to Gaza since establishment, and right now Israel doesn't allow them to go to Gaza. Even the reopening of the Rafah crossing was limited, so just 2,000 Palestinians crossed in and out since it is probability, and there are difficulties and obstacles facing that. But because of the ongoing war, everything put aside, and the people are watching and waiting what's going to happen as a result of this war, and then they will have time to resume the talks about Gaza.
You know, final quick question here. How do you think Palestinians perceive this situation? Do they believe that this war is in the interest of the Palestinian public ultimately?
This is a good question. And compared to the last June 12 days war between Israel and Iran, this time it's different. For Palestinians in Gaza, they don't have any sympathy with Iran because they feel that Iran is responsible for pushing Hamas for 7 October, which led to the destruction of the Gaza Strip. For Palestinians in the West Bank, they see that Iran is targeting the Arab countries, and they cannot sympathize or support Iran as long as it is also targeting the Arab countries. And also for the Palestinian Authority, they feel that Iran was intervening in the Palestinian affairs and supporting the 16 years of division between Fatah and Hamas in the West Bank and Gaza during the past time. So the only one who will be sorry and regret is Hamas and the Islamic Jihad. If the Iranian regime topple down, they will lose a strategic, strong military and political supporter. But the rest of the Palestinians don't feel sorry for that. And this time we didn't feel or witness any joyful phenomena as Palestinians gather on the the rooftops of their houses to watch the Iranian missiles on their way to target Tel Aviv. This time just we see some limited sympathy on the social media only, but we don't see any kind of sympathy and support for Iran, especially it is targeting the Arab countries, and they cannot stand with Iran against the Arab countries.
All right. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us, Mohammed. We're going to be back with you later, probably tonight. We're going to turn now to Spain. Spain is openly defying Washington, and the stakes have just gotten higher after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to cut off all trade with Spain for refusing to let American forces use Spanish bases for strikes on Iran. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez fired back in a televised address, declaring simply no to war. Sanchez says that Spain is not going to support what he calls a breakdown of international law. He's drawn comparisons to the 2003 Iraq invasion and warning that another Middle East war could destabilize Europe economically and politically as well. Now, Trump has also accused Madrid of being a weak NATO partner. So, of course, the question is whether or not this is a symbolic standoff or the start of a serious transatlantic rift. And I'm going to turn to our senior diplomatic correspondent, Owen Alterman, on this. So it's a really kind of interesting thing that's playing out here right now between Spain and the United States. How serious do you think Trump's threats to sever trade with Spain actually are?
Natasha, we just got
scared me.
Yeah, we're used to these. Early initial warning had to potentially go for a siren.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have to be going to the bomb shelter. Can you give us one sentence answer before we run in?
We have the cliche of Trump not to take him literally, but take him seriously. Literally, there doesn't seem to be much you can actually do about Spanish trade. But the serious point, Natasha, that no more can American allies take from the United States, in the case of Spain, collective defense under NATO, in the case of other countries, trade, and spit rhetorically in the U.S.'s face and take aim at U.S. policies. Donald Trump has put a stop to that in Colombia, in the Arab world, for that matter, in places like South Africa. He's trying, and here in Spain. So it's a threat in Donald Trump's presidency. And in retrospect, it has to be said, wherever you stand on the political spectrum, it's long overdue.
All right. Well, on that note, my friends, as you just heard, as I jumped, we got another siren alerting us that there is an incoming ballistic missile from the Islamic Republic of Iran headed towards the state of Israel. That means we are going to be going into the bomb shelter shortly. That siren is probably going to start sounding within a couple of minutes from now. But you are watching I-24 News. Stick with us. We're going to be back again live from 8 to 9 p.m. Israel time with the latest updates. Stay safe wherever you are. This is I-24 News. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and we'll see you soon.